All right. This should be fun. Art Nouveau, Fauvism, precursors to Expressionism, and Art Deco. I just added Art Deco last year, so you gotta change things around. So this is Ferdinand Hodler, sorry. Um, and he's just going to be somebody that is hard to sort of pin down as far as the art movement that he's a part of or represents or whatever. So he's just kind of an outlier. And I really love his stuff. And ever since I've switched to digital images and don't use a slide projector anymore, now I can show you more of his stuff because slide companies in the past only had one or two of his works, which was not great. So this is called Night, and so you can see that the covers of the man in the middle have turned into the Grim Reaper, and one of the themes that's going to come out with the first part of this lecture, at least, is going to be nudity, and especially in Austria, it's going to be about how the particular modernist nude shocked people, which is hard for us to understand in this day and age, but it did. And so there's an emphasis on the human form here, obviously, and then that middle part is kind of scary. All right, so this is called The Delusioned. And pretty much what you see is what you get here. Various different states of delusionment, I guess. Uh-huh. And then I always kind of like this one. Maybe it's my Catholic boyhood upbringing with the whole angels levitating. Yeah, I don't know why, but I was just drawn to this one. What's it called? I guess it's called The Elected. All right. There you go. And then this one's kind of interesting. Truth. Yeah. Maybe a little bit of the Me Too movement is kind of coming out here. That's kind of my interpretation. Maybe I don't know whether that interpretation is right or wrong. She certainly has some interesting hair, and the men are in turmoil from truth. So the only slide I had of Ferdinand Hodler is this one on the left, a painting of his friend who was a sculptor. And then Bildnis Gertrude Müller is here on the right. And then this is really interesting. Two paintings of Valentine Goderell on her deathbed. Yeah, so was he a symbolist, and what did that mean? Symbolism has always been I've never been able to wrap my arms around it. There's kind of some new shows that have been talking about it. I gotta go back to the drawing room. I've got to go back to the library and figure it all out. All right, then we're moving to one of the most beloved artists of all time, of course, Gustav Klimt. What an eccentric guy he was. And a lot of people don't realize that starting out, he could paint realistically with the best of them. So here is the Vienna Opera House, a la Klimt. I thought I'd put him in here with one of his cats, because who doesn't love cats? Well, some people don't love cats, let's just be honest. But yeah, with one of his cats. Now, he doesn't start off as an Art Nouveau artist. Okay, let's define Art Nouveau. So Art Nouveau is a reaction by a set of artists, starting out, I guess we could say, in Austria, against the Second Industrial Revolution. They were afraid that humanity would stop loving art, and particularly objects that were made by artists, because you could now start to mass produce objects. The desk you're sitting in is mass produced. The chair, a lot of what's in the classroom is mass produced, and this is what the Art Nouveau artists were against. But he starts off as a fairly realistic painter on the left. Let me see. Portrait of a Lady in Black. And then on the right is the posthumous portrait of Rhea Monk II. Now, what you're seeing in the difference here, this is a great comparison, is that we're no longer getting a illusionistic background, okay, with the carpet or whatever the woman in black has in the background. Now you have a flat surface, and that's big. That's so big in the progression of modern art. And not only that, you're going to put this decorative flower thing around this woman as well, right? And Klimt always has that photorealistic face, which he continues to do with his Art Nouveau portraits and paintings, but a big jump between. So the woman in black was done in 1894, so 23 years difference between these two, and a lot has happened. Here's some more. So on the left, I would say that it's starting to get to his mature style, with now a blank background, okay, and it's a little bit more painterly. You can see the brushstrokes, and then bam, on the right side, yes, that's Klimt. I had this friend, Kelly, still a friend of mine, who took an art history class in the summer when I knew her in college, and at that point, you could go to a card store and you could study for an art history quiz, because there were a lot of cards of somebody like Klimt. People still are attracted to his paintings. And so in this one, photorealistic face, flat background, and very ornamental. He was actually influenced by Byzantine mosaics, which is pretty cool. All right, so on the right, his most famous painting, of course, and we call it now Woman in Gold. I saw it in the summer of 22 with Jennifer. On the left is the woman, Adele Bloch-Bauer. Yes, am I right? Yeah. Now, it has an interesting story. So she was a part of a Jewish family, and the painting on the right and 3 others were stolen by the Nazis. So she survives the Holocaust. She ends up in California, and her niece sues the Austrian government and says, we want our family paintings back. And this was the first time that a government in Europe, Austria, had been sued. And it took a long time for it to resolve. But in the end, she got all the 4 paintings back, and right away she sold The Woman in Gold to one of the lauders of the cosmetic and beauty billionaire family. And that's why you can see it in New York City. Now, when we went up and looked at it, her initials are all over this Byzantine mosaic dress thing, which maybe you wouldn't be able to see it. Well, you can see it because your slides are bigger than mine while I'm making this lecture. But, yeah, it's... now, it was made into a movie with Helen Mirren. I highly recommend the movie. Now, where did the other 3 go? I don't know, to be honest. But the one on the right sold for millions and millions of dollars. And that's what should be happening. People sold their art under duress with the Nazis, or that was stolen, and museums have been doing a better job with giving it back to those families, but there's still a lot of work to do. And this was another one of her. the contrast is really interesting. Of course, the palette is much more colorful and light. There's rumors that they were lovers. I don't know if that's been proven at all, or I guess it's here nor there. But yeah, very interesting story about the woman in gold. Ah, the kiss. That probably would have been at a card store in the 80s when I was helping my friends study for art history. Very, very popular image. I think you're seeing, what's interesting about it is you're seeing that floral design at the bottom, and then more of the mosaic design with what he's wearing. Yeah. Let's keep going. I've said this before in lectures and in class. I love unfinished paintings. And you see that on the right. And then it's another one, interesting, this time somebody younger with Klimt. Now, it's hard for us to understand why this type of style was so difficult for people to understand and celebrate. Out with the old, in with the new, I always say, but that's just not what people were saying in Austria at the time. Okay, Egon Schiele is beloved, especially by teenagers. He was a comet. He died at the age of 28. And it's really, I think, him more than Klimt that caused such a stir. Here's a self-portrait. And then the family. Now here I think you can recognize that, your average conservative individual living in Vienna at the time would look at something like this, where the artist is showing himself nude, his wife is nude, so on and so forth. You could see where they would maybe sort of just pause, but again, for us, we don't really think about that way. Yeah, seated female nude, elbows resting on right knee, and then portrait of Erich Lederer. And then a lot of people don't realize that Schiele actually did some really beautiful landscapes/cityscapes. There's a big show about it fairly recently. Yeah, so you should just be aware that it was more than just the very provocative nudes that he was doing. Okay, now let's move to another beloved individual, Alfons Mucha from Czechoslovakia, and he is one of the poster boys, so to speak, poster boy because he made the posters, of Art Nouveau, and just beautiful lines. These are still used. These are still beloved. Some for advertising, some for not advertising. This is the Four Seasons, and we're all ready for spring. So yeah, bring on the spring, please. And then here are two examples. On the left, an advertisement for biscuits. Now, this is a big new thing, right? We talked about this with Toulouse-Lautrec, that artists were now making images for industry. Does that then make him a commercial artist? I guess in some ways. But, we have a lot of people graduate from the school, and they are involved in their work as commercial artists. It's just part of the world. And then to the right is it's an advertisement for a festival. Okay, so there's Mucha. Sorry I went kind of fast through Mucha, but we got to move on. Okay, so this is Gustave Moreau, and what really he's known for is that he is the teacher of not all the Fauves, but a number of the Fauves who we're going to talk about in a couple minutes. So Orpheus is on the left, Salome is on the right doing the dance of the seven veils. And he is a symbolist for sure, which again, I need to go back to the library and kind of figure that all out. And then here's some more stuff that's would have been would have had people pause. There's Oedipus and the Sphinx on the left, and then Jason and Medea on the right. I mean, your average person probably doesn't know anything about Nouveau, and if a person is interested in art history, would probably know him as a teacher of. I think he was a teacher of Matisse. Okay, so now we're looking at. We've got all the big ones today. Now we're looking at, of course, Henri Matisse, and here he is with his cat. So, Fauvism. Fauvism equals liberation of color. Now you can use any color you want to in your paintings. You can have, as we'll see in a minute, an orange road. We'll see a purple river. So if you look at modernism as picking apart the Italian Renaissance tradition of realistic painting, now we're done. We're done with color having to be realistic. And so you have his wife here with this green stripe down her nose and the green and yellowish side of her face. So this is probably one of his most famous paintings. There's a couple versions of it. Now he's not interested in realistic figures. Again, not interested in colors being what you would see in front of with your own eyes. And of course, this is called the dance. Here's the blue nude. Now, again, this doesn't seem all that shocking to you guys, but back then, people would have been, well, does this woman have blue skin color? But no, we don't have to have it look like you would see a woman out in a field. And also the anatomy is very different too. Okay, this is another famous one of his works. This is the Red Studio. And he has some of his more famous works. This one's really famous inside the studio itself. Now, as far as we know, he did not have a studio completely covered in red paint. So again, he's choosing whatever he wants to as far as his colors. This one is one, there's a professor, an English professor, I think she's retired now, at U of M, who just loves this painting. I think it's at the Art Institute of Chicago, and it's Woman Before an Aquarium. And then last but not least, so Matisse, in his later years, was bedridden, or at least, yeah, I think he was bedridden. And talk about the spirit of an artist, just continuing on, he would have his assistants give him colored paper, and he would cut it and make it into different series of what are called the cutout series. And this one is about jazz. Love that guy. This is my favorite Fauve. It's Andre Derain. I remember I said we would see purple river. I guess I was wrong. It's blue, yellow, green, and red. This is in London. This is Charing Cross Bridge. And then I believe the painting on the right is owned by Mia. So next time you go to the Minneapolis Institute of Arts, you can go in there and impress your friends and tell them about Fauvism. And the one on the left is in Houston. And you see there's yellow, orange road here, and the trees are variously colored. Classic example of Fauvism. My least favorite Fauve is Vlaminck. He has a more choppy brushstroke, I would say. Yeah, and he was kind of an egotist. Yeah, he's not my fave. My favorite Fauve is Derain, as you know. Okay, as I said, we're going to the biggies today. Edvard Munch, Norway's most famous painter. He could paint realistically with the best of them, as you see on the left. And then on the right, Between the Clock and the Bed, 1940-43. And it's interesting, Jasper Johns took the design of the bed cover and used it in some of his works. And there's a whole museum just dedicated to Edvard Munch in Norway. Okay, what do we have here? Summer Night's Dream, The Dream. Okay, let's talk about the Scream. So we think that Munch might have actually seen a red sky, because there was a volcano that went off, something like in Indonesia at some point, and the red sky over Norway was something he actually saw. A lot of people don't know that the Scream is part of a series of paintings. It was not a standalone painting. Something like the Frieze of Life is what it's called. And you can see another one of those on the left, and then the very famous painting on the right. Now, I had two students do their project on the Scream, and they had tryouts, and a music kid could scream the longest, and they had him outside at the railroad bridge and had him scream for a short video. It was really magnificent. Okay, so the Madonna and sperm cells and a zygote Jesus. Now you understand why Edvard Munch was controversial at times. Okay, now we're going to talk about James Ensor, the famous artist from Belgium. So he grew up in a shop, a theatrical shop, and I always like to say little boy James Ensor turned into strange adult James Ensor. You can always recognize his works because he has a lot of theatrical masks inside them, and this is a self-portrait with masks. This is his version of Saint Anthony, who was plagued by demons, on the left. And then a work from the Northern Renaissance, Martin Shangar's Temptation of Saint Anthony on the right. So it's kind of an interesting sort of comparison there. Okay, this is at the Getty. This is the entry of Christ into Brussels. And in the background, kind of to the left, there's a green balcony. And there's the XX Roman numerals 20. And there's somebody defecating and throwing up over the 20 because James Ensor was invited into the group of 20 in art school. And they were this sort of very much trying to be this sort of revolutionary, disturbing group of artists. And it turns out they kicked him out. So he's getting his artistic revenge in the background. Try and find Jesus with the huge halo in the middle of the painting. Okay, this is called Doctrinal Nourishment, and I think it's pretty much self-explanatory. The aristocracy is pooping the propaganda and throwing it onto its people. Easily I could go into this present state of affairs, but maybe I'll be using these recordings for later, and hopefully things do improve. There you go. And then this one is The Dangerous Cooks. There's a lot going on in this one. And then The Intrigue, which is the James Ensor painting at Mia. Easily recognized because of the masks. Okay, then he was also into skeletons. On the left, skeletons fighting for the body of a hanged man. That's creepy. And then on the right, skeleton looking at Chinese prints. You didn't know it, but skeletons love art. And then on the left, skeletons in an interior with stove because they got to warm up. And then this is on my website on the right, skeleton artist. Okay, now we're gonna go into some stuff that I added just in 25. Yeah, spring of 25. So this is Paula Motors Motorso Becker. She's possibly the first woman who did a nude self-portrait, as we see here, pregnant. And then here's another one of hers, self-portrait with green background and blue irises. Okay, there was a huge show focused on Tamara Lempinka, and she is a marvel. I mean, she's really interesting. I have the catalog. This is just a photograph of her. And then you have this one. This is the most famous painting of her, done by her, obviously. Tamara in a green Bugatti, which is a very famous sports car. And it does, we're going to get into it a little bit more, but it is Art Deco because it's a glorification of technology. And then this is a portrait of a friend of hers. You can see why everybody loves Lempinka. And there's some lesbian sort of vibes going on with some of her work. She was definitely bisexual, had a very interesting life with various different individuals, we'll say. And then here's another one. Okay. Now, what are we doing next? Oh, well, this is something different. I think you would recognize it as her work, but yeah, so Mother Superior crying. It's not all just beautiful people in her paintings, I guess is what the point I'm trying to make. And then she did still lifes too, not very many, but this is still life with a print of Diana. Well, she's still got some stuff going on there. Okay, so now what are we doing? Oh, okay, so we're still doing some comparisons. Okay, so on the left, I came so close to seeing this in Rome, but the churches were closed on Christmas Day. So this is the Ecstasy of St. Teresa on the left by the very famous Italian Baroque sculptor, Bernini. And then on the right is a close-up of the Ecstasy of St. Teresa by Lempinka. So kind of a fun little art history thing going on there. And then we've seen this one by Ingres. And does she do something with it? No. Oh, interesting. Oh, I think we're just kind of talking about her the influences on her. That's probably what I'm getting at. And then this is Parmigiano's Madonna with a long neck, which all goes into influencing the round dance, which maybe is on the back side of your slide sheet. Yeah, I think so. Okay. So let's get into Art Deco. So it is a glorification of technology. And one thing I said last year to sort of simplify it down is it's a lot of steel and sort of silver. It's definitely about metal as a new artistic medium and also architectural medium. On the left is they're both the Chrysler Building, and I think the Chrysler Building is without a doubt the most famous Art Deco structure for sure. And here is Margaret Burke White photographing for Life magazine on top of the Chrysler Building from one of the eagles on the 64th floor of the Chrysler Building, which is one of my favorite photographs of all time, actually. I love her as a photographer, and I just think it's so cool that she's basically on the exterior of the Chrysler Building. All right, so here's some furniture, some Art Deco furniture. I don't think that looks very comfortable. I don't know if I'd buy that sofa. I wonder if you could still get it. Probably. Ah, that doesn't look very comfortable at all. Some people are into Art Deco and have Art Deco inspired furniture in their houses, but the metal structure there is not my fave. Okay, so this is Mies van der Rohe's chair. If somebody was trying to impress somebody, they would buy this chair and have a modernist home, and people would come in, the Mies van der Rohe chair. It's still being manufactured and seen as one of the most important furniture pieces of the 20th century, I would say. Okay, and then let's go to Paul Manship, who's actually from St. Paul. And this is sort of his Art Deco look. It's Diana, the goddess Diana. And then here's Actaeon being basically killed by the dogs. Okay, and then I decided to show a little bit of cocktail symbolism, or cocktail or drinking implements with Art Deco. This is a tea and coffee service. This is a owl cocktail shaker. This is, wow. I don't know if I would really drink from those. I don't know. It's almost too precious in a way. Maybe that's just me. And then the coffee urn. I've never seen one like that except for in the book that I was reading last year. A Zeppelin air shop cocktail set. It's pretty cool. And then last but not least, here we go, a tea service in an Art Deco style. Okay, we're done with that. We are done. No, wait, we aren't. We have